Hello, welcome to Science and Sleep. I'm so glad you're here. Maybe you're lying comfortably under your blanket, getting ready to close out a long day, or simply looking for something both soothing and captivating to accompany your sleep. Tonight, we'll take a journey back in time, more than 200 million years ago, to when giant creatures once ruled the earth and left an indelible mark. Yes, this is the story of dinosaurs, but not just about claws or thundering roars. This is a journey to discover how they helped shape the modern world we live in. If you enjoy adventures that are both relaxing and full of knowledge, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next episode. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the end of the video because the secrets dinosaurs left behind may change the way you see the Earth today with an entirely new perspective. As we turn back the flow of time to the Triassic period, the world then was no paradise. Instead, it was a harsh, hot, arid, and often shaken by volcanoes. Across the vast supercontinent Pangaea, dry winds swept over immense deserts, while along the coasts appeared lush valleys where life could cling on. And it was in this harshness that the first dinosaurs stepped into the light. At first glance, they were not majestic as we imagine them today. Many primitive dinosaurs were only hip-high to a human, slender in build, moving swiftly, living among countless other competing creatures. In the same lands, you might encounter predators from the Rauisuchian group, giant relatives of crocodiles, or long-bodied reptiles with small heads trying their luck at survival. In that world, dinosaurs were merely newcomers of the Triassic, but evolutionary advantage had given them a special ticket, straight legs placed directly beneath their bodies. No longer did they have the sprawling, cumbersome gait of other reptiles. They could run farther, endure longer, and most importantly, adapt quickly to a changing environment. Over millions of years, this resilience allowed them to infiltrate and occupy ecological niches left vacant after minor extinctions. Then came another turning point. At the end of the Triassic, a great upheaval swept across the planet, wiping out much of the competition. And so, when the door closed for many creatures, it opened for the dinosaurs. That was the moment marking the beginning of their mighty reign that lasted more than 160 million years. Entering the Jurassic period, the planet began to change its appearance. Pangaea gradually fractured, paving the way for new oceans to form. The climate became warmer, wetter, vegetation flourished, creating dense forests, an ideal environment for the dinosaurs' explosion. This was the stage when they truly grew up, not only in size, but also in diversity. Giants like sauropods with necks stretched high like watchtowers grazed on treetops, while predatory theropods like Allosaurus prowled below. In the skies, pterosaurs soared, and in the seas, giant marine reptiles like ichthyosaurs roamed. What makes this story astonishing is how dinosaurs not only survived, but became architects of ecosystems. When sauropods passed through, they broke trees, opening gaps for sunlight to reach the forest floor, allowing young plants to grow. Their dung, abundant and rich, recycled nutrients, feeding the soil and sustaining life cycles. The carnivores, fearsome as they were, helped balance herbivore populations, preventing any one species from absolute dominance. In other words, dinosaurs were not just inhabitants, they were the first ecological engineers on a global scale. But if we look closer, the deepest impact of dinosaurs was not confined to the past. They laid the foundation for the world we live in today. The clearest example is birds, the direct descendants of theropod dinosaurs. When you hear birdsong in the morning, that is in fact the lingering echo of the Jurassic. Feathers, perhaps first for insulation or display, eventually evolved into wings that allowed a small branch of dinosaurs to conquer the skies. And when the asteroid ended the age of dinosaurs, only those small feathered branches survived to continue the story. Another influence, less often considered, is how dinosaurs shaped the physical environment. Many studies suggest that their mass movements across ancient plains may have altered river courses, expanded floodplains, and even contributed to seed dispersal. Figuratively speaking, if the Earth were a fabric, then dinosaur footprints were the stitches shaping its basic weave. And then we arrive at a deeper truth. It was thanks to dinosaurs that mammals, including humans, had a chance. For tens of millions of years, mammals were merely small creatures living in the shadows, avoiding the giants outside. But the existence of dinosaurs forced our ancestors to develop alternative survival strategies: burrowing, living nocturnally, nursing young with milk. When the meteor fell 66 million years ago, those very traits, once just emergency adaptations, became keys to survival. So, if today you sit in a warm room enjoying fried eggs for breakfast, you are in fact savoring two gifts left by dinosaurs: eggs. Eggs, the legacy of ancient reptiles, and birds, the surviving branch of dinosaurs. Every time you look up at the sky and see a flock of birds passing, remember that you are witnessing the newest chapter of a story that began more than 200 million years ago. This story, when told, is not merely an epic of giant creatures. It is also a testament to the enduring power of life, to nature's unceasing adaptability and creativity. Dinosaurs transformed the earth, and in the process, they handed us a world to inherit. That world, from oxygen-rich air, fertile soil, to the birds singing outside, still bears their imprint. If the Triassic was the overture with its humble pioneers, then the Jurassic was when the curtain truly rose. The world was no longer a barren desert, but had transformed into a lush, ecological banquet stretching across the planet. The breakup of Pangaea opened new oceans, the climate grew wetter, and forests of ferns and conifers towered to cover the land. In that setting, nature seemed to pose a challenge. How big can life become? And dinosaurs answered with giants beyond imagination. The sauropods, the ancestors of the concept of the long-necked dinosaur, became icons. Picture a brachiosaurus more than 12 meters tall, raising its head to the height of a four-story building, its neck stretched like a crane, sweeping through treetops to graze on leaves. In the distance, Diplodocus extended its 27-meter-long body, its tail whipping like a giant lash capable of producing piercing sounds to communicate or drive off enemies. These colossal bodies operated not through sharp intelligence, but through massive digestive systems, working like enormous composting plants to turn entire forests into energy. Food entered almost intact, ground with the help of swallowed stones, then took days to be processed inside their guts. Perhaps their digestion was like tossing a heap of raw vegetables into a rock grinder and hoping for an acceptable result. Despite their modest intelligence, many had brains no larger than a grapefruit. The success of sauropods came from sheer size. Their enormity protected them from predators, allowed access to the tallest vegetation, and enabled them to travel tens of kilometers a day in search of new feeding grounds. A herd of sauropods could transform entire landscapes, trampling trees, fertilizing soil, and opening spaces for young plants to grow. They were like massive bulldozers of flesh and bone, silently reshaping the earth. But the Jurassic world was not only home to gentle giants. The shadows of the forest concealed cunning predators, theropods. Among them, the most prominent was Allosaurus, a hunter over 10 meters long, armed with serrated teeth and powerful legs. Not as strong in bite force as the later Tyrannosaurus, Allosaurus had its own tactic: rapid, repeated bites, quick and precise, like blades striking down rather than crushing. Fossils show sauropod bones bearing bite marks, some even healed, proving that such life and death encounters happened often. Perhaps entire Jurassic plains once shook with the drama, a herd of Camarasaurus grazing, when suddenly dark shapes lunged from the brush, roars thundered, and the ground trembled as hunter and hunted clashed. Yet not all theropods were massive terrors. In the Jurassic, many smaller species lived alongside them, some insect eaters, some scavengers, some even carrying strange traits like primitive feathers. From this small group, birds eventually emerged. The moment a branch of theropods grew feathers for warmth, then gradually transformed forelimbs into wings, was a turning point in evolution. When you see a sparrow gliding around a garden today, that is the miniature image of an experiment that began in the Jurassic. Then the story advanced into the Cretaceous period, the final and grandest chapter of the dinosaur reign. This was the age when continents were distinctly separated, the climate was warm, sea levels rose high, creating vast coastal regions and ecosystems richer than ever before. In this grand scene, many new main characters stepped onto the stage. Herbivorous dinosaurs were now more abundant than ever. Beyond the still mighty sauropods, there were hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, whose teeth lined up like plant-grinding machines, living in enormous herds. Some hadrosaurs had hollow crests on their heads, capable of producing resonant sounds to communicate across long distances, like trumpet blasts in a prehistoric concert. Facing them were the final masters of predation. The largest and most famous carnivorous dinosaur appeared, Tyrannosaurus rex. Over 12 meters long, nearly 4 meters tall, and with a bite force many times that of today's crocodiles, it was truly the emblem of evolutionary power. Unlike Allosaurus, which relied on speed and repeated strikes, T. rex could seemingly bring down prey with a single crushing bite. Fossil evidence shows it was not only a hunter, but also a scavenger, an intelligent strategy to survive in a harsh environment. Yet the Cretaceous was not only the age of dinosaurs, it was also the era when flowering plants flourished, the first plants to bear bright colors and fragrances to attract insects. As flowers spread, they permanently reshaped the global food web, opening a new energy source that even dinosaurs had to adapt to. The world then was like a vast symphony, blossoms blooming, bees buzzing, ancient birds soaring in the skies, while on the ground herds of giant dinosaurs continued their monumental journey. But like every symphony, the finale was sudden and dramatic. 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid struck Earth, creating the Chicxulub crater in present-day Mexico. The impact released energy billions of times greater than nuclear bombs, covering the sky with dust and ash, blocking sunlight and abruptly altering the global climate. That catastrophe wiped out most dinosaurs, along with countless other creatures. Yet not all vanished. A small branch of feathered theropods survived the darkness and cold. These were the ancestors of birds. And because the giant dinosaurs disappeared, mammals, hidden in the shadows for hundreds of millions of years, finally had their chance to step into the light. From there, the evolutionary path leading to humans was opened. Looking back, we see that dinosaurs are not just a distant memory. They were the great architects of ecosystems, the indirect reason for our own rise, and they still live today in the wings of birds. Their reign ended, but their legacy has never faded. As the Cretaceous period drew toward its final chapters, Earth had become a vibrant and diverse canvas. Dinosaurs were not merely giants walking the land. They had become essential parts of the planet's rhythm. They literally shaped the landscape. Massive herds of sauropods sweeping through forests with their long necks, opening gaps for young plants to grow. Herds of hadrosaurs stripping grasslands bare, giving flowering plants the chance to regenerate rapidly. And their enormous footprints, pressed into soft mud, redirected the courses of rivers themselves. Dinosaurs were the first ecosystem engineers on a global scale, long before humans even knew the concept. But it wasn't only the natural environment, even the evolution of other creatures was deeply influenced. The explosion of angiosperms and flowers sparked a chain reaction. Insects had to evolve rapidly to adapt, with bees and butterflies gradually becoming the main pollinators. In return, herbivorous dinosaurs expanded their diets. Duckbill-shaped beaks and conveyor belt-like rows of teeth were proof that life constantly adapts to exploit any available resource. Thanks to this evolutionary spiral, we now have the rich ecosystems where birds, insects, and plants are bound together in a mutual web. On the predatory side, theropods reached their most sophisticated stage. If Allosaurus was the symbol of raw power, then with T. rex, Velociraptor, and Deinonychus, we see the combination of muscle and intelligence. Some fossil evidence even suggests pack hunting, with coordinated strategies rather than solitary attacks. Sickle-shaped claws, jagged teeth, and forward-facing predator eyes marked a leap in animal behavior. And from this very group, feathers, initially just insulating filaments, gradually became wings that lifted some dinosaurs into the skies. It is hard to overstate the scale of this event. It was one of the most important evolutionary revolutions in Earth's history. When the first Archaeopteryx spread its wings, it not only ushered in the age of birds, but also laid the foundation for tens of thousands of modern species flying around us today. Every morning song is the distant echo of Cretaceous forests. When you see a pigeon on the street or an eagle soaring in the sky, you are seeing the shadow of dinosaurs. Not as fossils, but as living dinosaurs still continuing their evolutionary journey. At the same time, the mark of dinosaurs is etched into the physical planet itself. When they died, their massive bodies, buried with plants and sediments, formed reserves of coal and oil, the fossil fuels that humanity now relies on to light cities, power vehicles, or forge steel. These are ancient gifts from the world where dinosaurs once reigned. We are burning the traces of dinosaurs to sustain modern civilization. In a sense, their presence still moves within every spark of city light. Nor does it end there. The way dinosaurs went extinct also helped shape the modern world. The moment the Chicxulub asteroid struck Earth 66 million years ago, it ended their reign, but it opened the door for mammals, our ancestors, to rise. Without that event, dinosaurs might have continued to dominate, and humans may never have appeared. In other words, it was the very disappearance of dinosaurs that created the evolutionary space for us to step into the light. The modern world, with all its technology, art, and even the fact that you are sitting here listening to this story, is the indirect result of that catastrophic moment. The wonder here is this: dinosaurs are not only the past, they are part of the present. They exist in the fuel we burn, in the sparrows outside the window, in the landscapes marked by fossilized footprints, and in the collective imagination of humankind. No other group of creatures has left behind both a biological legacy and such a powerful cultural imprint. From comics and films to the giant skeletons in museums, dinosaurs continue to shape how we think about life and death, about strength and the fragility of nature. So, when we say that dinosaurs shaped the modern world, it is not just a poetic metaphor, it is the truth. They transformed forests into grasslands for evolution of plants, shaped animal behavior, left behind energy resources for the future, and even inadvertently gave humans the chance to exist. And today, as we continue to learn from fossils, from bird DNA, from the stories still locked in stone, we are not just studying a closed chapter. We are uncovering the very foundation of the world we live in. Dinosaurs never truly disappeared. They live on in every bird's wing beat, in every drop of burning fuel, in every lesson of adaptation and survival. And if there is one thing we can learn from that legacy, it is this: life always finds a way to continue, to renew itself, and to leave echoes that reach far beyond its own age. In the Cretaceous period, our planet was like a gigantic construction site, where dinosaurs were both inhabitants and architects. Every step, every meal, every breath they took became a brushstroke on the vast ecological canvas. Imagine herds of sauropods tens of meters long, their necks stretching toward the sky like living cranes, moving back and forth across plains and forests. With their enormous stomachs, they consumed an almost unimaginable amount of vegetation, only to give back to the land precious nutrients. Their massive droppings, which might sound crude, were in fact a gift that sowed the seeds of life, a mixture rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, and organic matter, fertilizing the soil and nourishing the next generation of plants. Thanks to this cycle, the Mesozoic forests never truly died, but constantly revived in the harmony of consumption and renewal. Just as African elephants today break trees to open paths for their herds, sauropods created ecological corridors through the forests. When tens of tons of muscle knocked down tough underbrush, sunlight filtered to the ground, allowing shrubs and grasses to grow. Those vast trails served not only the dinosaurs themselves, but also became passageways for smaller creatures, lizards, early mammals, and even insects. On a geological scale, gigantic footprints pressed into mud shaped the flow of rivers. A river could change course simply because thousands of footsteps repeatedly eroded its banks, opening channels for water to spill through. Thus, dinosaurs did not merely eat and live, they sculpted the earth with their very presence. Meanwhile, hadrosaurs or iguanodons, smaller than sauropods but moving in herds of hundreds or even thousands, also left marks no less important. With shovel-shaped beaks, they swept clean the low vegetation, creating large clearings. Those bare patches, in turn, opened opportunities for other plants to grow in, creating a spiral of biodiversity. Their massive group-feeding behavior ensured that no plant species could dominate, thereby maintaining ecological balance. If today, deer and elk help forests regenerate by eating down young saplings, then tens of millions of years ago, herbivorous dinosaurs played the very same role, only on a scale tens of times larger. But that world was not made only of herbivores. Wherever there was pasture, claws lurked in the shadows. Theropods, from giants like Giganotosaurus to agile hunters like Velociraptor, were the conductors of darkness in this evolutionary symphony. They chased, stalked, and most importantly, selected. By eliminating the weak, the old, or the sick, They kept herbivore populations healthy and dynamic. Their influence sometimes came not from action, but from mere presence. A fresh Tyrannosaurus footprint in the mud was enough to make a herd of hadrosaurs alter their migration route, avoiding a dead zone. This was a form of invisible ecological regulation, where fear itself became a balancing force in nature. And in this world of competition, not only the strong had influence, even death was part of the ecological circle. When a gigantic dinosaur collapsed, its body became a resource reservoir for hundreds of other species. Scavengers tore at flesh, insects, and bacteria decomposed, and even fungi sprouted from the bones. Within a few years, a giant weighing tens of tons dissolved into the earth, returning as nutrients to feed plants, which in turn nourished new herds of dinosaurs. This was the grand cycle, where life and death were not opposites, but two rhythms in harmony within the music of evolution. But perhaps the deepest legacy of dinosaurs was not on the ground, but in the sky. From small evolutionary experiments, feathers that first grew merely for warmth, nature discovered a way to transform them into wings. Primitive birds like Archaeopteryx were not just strange new creatures, but proof that life always yearns for unconquered horizons. Every modern bird wing we see today is the result of tens of millions of years of trial, failure, and success. When a sparrow chirps outside the window, it is not only the voice of the present, but an echo resonating from the Cretaceous. Not only birds, but even pterosaurs, relatives of dinosaurs, turned the sky into their own domain. Some grew as large as small airplanes, soaring in search of prey. Others were as small as sparrows, hunting insects among the forest canopy. The sky, once filled only with clouds and insects, became a three-dimensional battlefield where wings opened a new era for life. This not only expanded living space, but reshaped the entire food web. Predators could now strike from above, and prey had to develop sharper senses to survive. Looking back, we see clearly. Dinosaurs were not merely giant, fearsome creatures of imagination. They were a silent creative force, shaping land, rebuilding forests, sowing seeds, fertilizing soil, regulating populations, and ultimately opening the sky for birds. If the planet were a symphony, dinosaurs were the great musicians, playing melodies that lasted for hundreds of millions of years. And the echoes of that music still resonate in the modern world, in every bird's wing, in every winding river, and even in the energy humans use today, which is the fossilized remains of those ancient giants. As the choking dust of catastrophe slowly settled, an entirely new Earth began to emerge. Forests that had once been dense now stood only as blackened, charred trunks. The skies that had been filled with pterosaurs and early bird-like dinosaurs now held only small survivors, hiding among the ashes. But from this silence, a new chapter of life began to resound. And to understand how dinosaurs shaped the modern world, we must look deeply into the legacies they left behind, not only in fossils, but in the very structure of ecosystems and even in the DNA of life today. First, let's talk about birds, the only surviving branch of the dinosaur tree. When we see a sparrow hopping along a power line or a hawk circling in the sky, it is not just an everyday scene. It is living proof of an evolutionary experiment that lasted hundreds of millions of years. Feathers, once nothing more than crude insulation, became tools to conquer the skies. Light bones, powerful chest muscles, efficient respiratory systems, all are legacies of theropod dinosaurs. Without dinosaurs, there would be no birdsong in the morning, no epic migrations across oceans, and no majestic birds of prey ruling the skies. Our atmosphere, modern food chains, even the way seeds are dispersed across vast distances, all bear the imprint of the wings that dinosaurs first brought into being. But the legacy of dinosaurs does not end with birds. Their death was the condition that allowed other groups of life to rise. When dinosaurs went extinct, mammals, once only small creatures living in the shadows, suddenly had the chance to step into the light. If dinosaurs had not vanished, mammals might have remained forever as mere scavengers at the feet of giants. But the collapse of the dinosaurs cleared the stage, and mammals quickly claimed the lead role. From there, the evolutionary tree leading to monkeys, apes, and ultimately humans was written. In other words, it is precisely because dinosaurs disappeared that we are here today. Every gesture of a hand holding a pen, every step of upright legs, every spark of thought in the human brain is an indirect product of the moment dinosaurs exited the stage of life. Humanity, in the end, is the void filled after the catastrophic exclamation point of the Cretaceous. Yet the dinosaurs' legacy also seeps into many deeper layers of the modern world. Consider oil and gas, the energy sources upon which our industrial civilization depends. Part of this originates from the remains of ancient plants and animals, including the ecosystems once dominated by dinosaurs. The forests, swamps, and seas where dinosaurs lived left behind vast reserves of carbon underground. Today, when we start a car or light up a city, we are burning energy stored from the age of the dinosaurs. In a sense, dinosaurs are still powering our modern world. Moreover, dinosaurs have shaped human imagination and culture. Since the first fossils were unearthed in the 19th century, they have become an endless source of inspiration for literature, art, and cinema. Few scientific symbols are as powerful as the dinosaur, evoking both fear and wonder. They remind us that Earth was once a stage for extraordinary creatures, and that life is always in flux. Blockbuster films, adventure novels, even children's toys all prove that dinosaurs still live on in human imagination, even though their bones have long since turned to stone. Beyond that, the study of dinosaurs has changed how we understand evolution and life itself. Before the discovery of feathered fossils in China, many people thought dinosaurs were slow, lumbering lizards. But today we know that dinosaurs were dynamic, complex, and in many cases closely related to modern birds. Reconstructing their behavior, colors, and ecology has opened a window into how life transforms. Dinosaurs, in a sense, are a mirror of evolution, showing that even the most powerful rulers can vanish, and that adaptation is the true key to survival. And finally, perhaps the most important legacy of dinosaurs is the lesson about the fragility of life. A single rock from space wiped out the mightiest creatures on the planet. This reminds us that humanity's power today is also temporary. Climate change, pollution, or even another asteroid all could bring an end to our age. But instead of despair, this is a call to cherish life, to value our planet, and to learn from the long history of evolution. So when you see a sparrow on your windowsill, you are not just looking at a small creature, you are witnessing a living dinosaur. When you read a book about evolution, you are not merely seeing dry fossils, you are gazing into the story that made your very existence possible. Dinosaurs are not just the past, they are the foundation of the present and a mirror for the future. Fossil fuels may sound like a distant concept from science class, but in reality, they are the thread that connects us to the world of dinosaurs and even to eras long before them. Every time you switch on a light, cook a meal, or ride in a car cruising down the road, you're unknowingly tapping into energy stored from ancient forests, from tiny marine algae that once drifted in prehistoric seas. It is sunlight frozen within dead bodies, compressed underground for tens or even hundreds of millions of years. A part of that is the legacy of the world once ruled by dinosaurs. To understand this more clearly, picture a carboniferous forest. No birdsong, no colorful flowers, only giant ferns, towering primitive conifers, and swampy ground covered in moss. When these massive organisms died, their remains did not fully decay due to the oxygen-poor environment. Instead, they accumulated, stacked layer upon layer. Over millions of years, pressure and heat transformed these layers of plant remains into coal, one of humanity's most powerful energy sources. Even before dinosaurs appeared, this planet was quietly preparing an energy treasury for the future of humankind. By the Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs, this cycle continued, but now the main characters were not only forests. Imagine a warm, shallow sea where gentle waves lapped against the shore and sunlight streamed down onto glittering mats of algae. Countless tiny marine creatures, from plankton to minute corals, lived, reproduced, and died, their bodies sinking to the seafloor and quickly being buried by layers of mud and sand. In silence and darkness, they slowly transformed into petroleum and natural gas. The seas of the dinosaur age, instead of leaving behind only fossilized bones, also left behind vast energy reserves that we drill and extract today. And therein lies the paradox. Dinosaurs disappeared after the asteroid impact, yet the legacy of the world they lived in continues to fuel human civilization. The energy we use to light up cities, to produce steel, to power the internet, all of it is an indirect result of the ecosystems in which dinosaurs once roamed beneath fern-filled forests. In a sense, though no longer present, Dinosaurs still support us every day in a very tangible way through fossil fuels. Yet, this is not only a story of legacy, it is also a reminder. Fossil fuels are not infinite. What we are extracting are only the finite remnants of hundreds of millions of years of life. In just a few short centuries, humans have burned through a significant portion of that treasure, releasing back the carbon that ancient plants and creatures once locked away underground. The consequences are climate change, melting ice, rising temperatures, a frightening loop when we realize that what once led to the extinction of dinosaurs may, in another form, threaten us as well. But do not think of this as a pessimistic story. Just as life revived after the asteroid catastrophe, humans too have the capacity to adapt and innovate. From fossil fuels, we learned that the sun's energy can be stored and reused. Today, with modern technology, we can harness sunlight and wind directly, the very sources of energy that ancient ecosystems once relied on. In other words, by transitioning to renewable energy, we are relearning the lesson of the dinosaurs and their world, that life endures by knowing how to draw on sustainable natural resources. The wonder is that this story ties together past, present, and future. Think about it. A gasoline-powered car today runs on energy stored from a Cretaceous forest or a shallow sea full of plankton tens of millions of years ago. When an electric car rolls forward powered by solar energy, it too continues that cycle, but this time more directly from the same sunlight that prehistoric plants once used to grow under the shadow of dinosaurs. The more we reflect, the more we see that dinosaurs are not merely creatures that vanished into fossil museums. They live on in the breath of every bird, in the morning crow of a rooster, in every drop of gasoline burning bright inside an engine. We live in a world shaped by dinosaurs, not by their claws or teeth, but by the ecosystems and energy they left behind. And when you see a bird gliding across the sky or hear the steady rumble of a motorbike passing by, remember that both are whispers from the age of dinosaurs. A whisper that life always finds a way to be reborn, and that the legacy of those ancient giants still quietly flows through the lifeblood of the modern world. In the 19th century, amid the echoes of steam engines and transcontinental trains, another race was boiling, not for land or gold, but to claim the deep past of the earth. It was the era when dinosaurs, once nothing more than scattered bones embedded in rock, began to step onto the stage of science as the main characters redefining humanity's understanding of the history of life. The name Bone Wars, at once dramatic and tragic, was born from the fierce clashes between two American scientists, Edward Drinker Cope and Othniel Charles Marsh. But to understand why this story erupted so violently, we must look at the broader context. A world hungry for knowledge, fascinated by dinosaurs as symbols of both grandeur and extinction. In Europe, the first museums to mount dinosaur skeletons drew throngs of curious visitors. A plaster iguanodon in London even became the venue for a dinner party held inside its belly, proof of the strange allure of these fossil dragons. In America, things exploded even further. Railroad lines opened up the Wild West, exposing vast cliffs filled with fossils no one had ever excavated. To scientists, it was nothing less than a new gold mine. And Cope and Marsh, once friends, quickly turned the West into the fiercest academic battlefield of the century. Cope was the archetype of a brilliant but hot-tempered scholar, always rushing to publish discoveries to claim fame. He could produce dozens of detailed sketches in a single night. Marsh, by contrast, was cautious, strategic, and unafraid to wield political and financial connections to gain an advantage. These opposing personalities clashed, and when prestige and funding were at stake, the conflict escalated into a ruthless race. They not only fought over fossils, but also slandered, sabotaged, and even ordered workers to smash specimens so the other could not have them. It sounds absurd, destroying priceless scientific treasures, but within that paradox lay a miracle. This very madness accelerated discoveries at an unprecedented pace. In just a few decades, more than 130 species of dinosaurs were described, including names that today are icons such as Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Diplodocus, and Allosaurus. Of course, not every discovery was flawless. Cope once reconstructed a plesiosaur skeleton with its head mistakenly attached to its tail, a blunder that made him the butt of ridicule. But overall, the legacy of the Bone Wars was enormous. It transformed dinosaurs from a vague concept into a vast universe of creatures, expanding the imagination of both science and the public. More importantly, the Bone Wars changed how humans thought about time. Before then, many still believed that Earth was only a few thousand years old, perfectly arranged since creation. But the massive skeletons buried in rocks hundreds of millions of years old posed an undeniable question. Could it be that our planet's history is far longer than we once thought, and that life had passed through entirely different ages? Every fossil tooth, every dinosaur footprint pressed into stone testified that Earth is not immutable, but always changing, always carrying within it the potential for renewal and destruction. Of course, another key player must be mentioned: the public. When the first dinosaur skeletons were mounted in museums, they were not only scientific exhibits, but cultural symbols. Crowds jostled to gaze up at the creatures that once ruled the planet, marveling at their demise, and at the same time haunted by the thought that humanity might not be eternal either. From then on, dinosaurs were not just academic study, they became mirrors reflecting both human ambition and human fear. The irony is that this bitter rivalry helped turn dinosaurs into superstars of collective imagination. Without Cope and Marsh, perhaps the public would not have so quickly witnessed the scale and diversity of the prehistoric world. The towering skeletons displayed in grand halls sowed the seeds for generations to come. Children dreaming of becoming paleontologists, artists painting dinosaurs in majestic poses, and scientists delving further into the past to find answers about evolution. Looking back, the Bone Wars seem like a historical paradox, a period tainted by personal ambition, yet radiant with scientific achievement. It proved that knowledge never develops in a sterile void. It often comes with competition, mistakes, and all too human drama. But it was precisely this chaos that lit up an entire field, transforming paleontology from the pastime of a few scholars into a vibrant science, connected with geology, biology, and even philosophy about life. And in the end, dinosaurs, creatures that vanished 66 million years ago, once again shaped the modern world, not with muscle and might, but with fossilized bones. They forced us to reflect on time, on the fragility of life, and on humanity's small place in the vast flow of evolution. From the cliffs of the Wild West to the grand museums, from bitter rivalry to childhood dreams, dinosaurs have transcended death to become eternal symbols of knowledge and imagination. Throughout the 20th century and continuing to this day, dinosaurs have transcended the boundaries of science to become global cultural icons. They are not only subjects of study in laboratories or museums, but have also stepped directly into the collective imagination through books, films, comics, toys, and countless other media. When a child doodles a picture of a triceratops in a coloring book, or when a blockbuster film brings giant dinosaurs onto the screen, we are witnessing the enduring vitality of creatures that went extinct 66 million years ago. It is precisely within this intersection of science and art that dinosaurs become both familiar and mysterious, both paleontological fact and cultural symbol. It is hard to find another extinct species with such a wide-reaching influence. Part of this comes from their inherent size and strangeness. Colossal bodies, sharp fangs, spikes, and crests made dinosaurs seem as if they had stepped out of dreams or nightmares. But more important than that is the story tied to them. Dinosaurs did not just live. They disappeared in a global catastrophe, wiped out suddenly while at the height of their ecological dominance. That story is both tragic and moving. We see in dinosaurs proof that absolute power does not guarantee immortality. Their death, in some sense, serves as a warning to humanity about the fragility of life on this planet. In popular art, dinosaurs are often portrayed as giants rising from the past, evoking both primal fear and deep admiration. From Willis O'Brien's stop motion in The Lost World, 1925, to the special effects miracle of Jurassic Park, 1993, each technological leap has brought dinosaurs closer to human visual experience. In particular, Jurassic Park shaped the modern image of dinosaurs in the minds of millions. No longer static skeletons, but living creatures that breathe, hunt, and chase. That film made people believe that, at least in the cinema, dinosaurs were still alive. And since then, they have never left the big screen, appearing in works ranging from serious science fiction to playful animated films for children. Interestingly, Dinosaurs have never been confined to a single role. At the same time, they can appear as terrifying predators on screen while also becoming friendly companions in children's picture books. Barney, the purple singing dinosaur, taught children to count and learn the alphabet, while Spielberg's clever velociraptors instilled terror in adult audiences. The way dinosaurs move between cultural layers, from education and entertainment to philosophy, shows the flexibility of this symbol. They are not merely prehistoric animals, but mirrors reflecting the emotions humans wish to project: fear, curiosity, admiration, and even the aspiration to transcend limits. For this very reason, dinosaurs are often used as metaphors. A corporation too unwieldy to adapt is described as a dinosaur waiting for extinction. An outdated idea is called a fossil. At the same time, however, dinosaurs also serve as a source of positive inspiration. They remind us that life was once so diverse and abundant as to be almost unbelievable, and that evolution constantly finds new directions. Sometimes, in the very extinction of dinosaurs, we find a message of hope. Life can collapse, but it can also regenerate, as clearly demonstrated by birds, the direct descendants of dinosaurs, still flying in the skies around us. It is undeniable that dinosaurs are also one of the greatest forces drawing children to science. Few subjects capture children's fascination to the point where they can memorize long, complicated names like Parasaurolophus or Pachycephalosaurus. That curiosity opens doors to geology, evolution, and climatology. A fossil fragment in a museum can plant a seed of wonder that leads to an entire career in research. Many leading paleontologists today often recall that their passion began with a plastic dinosaur toy or a picture book about the prehistoric world. In this way, dinosaurs exist not only in the distant past, but also in nurturing the future of science. Today, the presence of dinosaurs spreads even more widely thanks to digital technology. Scientists announce discoveries directly on social media, while 3D simulations and virtual reality allow the public to stroll among herds of giant diplodocus or admire the iridescent feathers of Microraptor. Museum displays can now move, roar, and even interact with visitors. This transforms dinosaurs into a bridge between serious science and emotional experience, between fossil evidence and vivid imagination. The strangest thing is that the more we learn about dinosaurs, the more elusive they become. Science answers many questions: how dinosaurs walked, what they ate, how they evolved, but leaves open great mysteries: their true colors, the sounds they made, or the complex social behaviors that fossils cannot record. These very gaps fuel imagination. Artists paint dinosaurs with vibrant palettes, writers send them on adventures, and audiences speculate freely. Dinosaurs, in their own unique way, are the perfect balance between the known and the unknown. Perhaps this is why dinosaurs have such enduring appeal. They are at once scientific heritage, cultural monument, and gateway to imagination. They make us feel both small and wondrous, reminding us of how powerful life can be and how fragile. Dinosaurs are gone, but in the human mind they are more alive than ever, no longer roaming the Jurassic forests, but thriving in our imagination, art, and dreams. As we trace the footsteps of prehistoric climate, one thing becomes clear: the Earth has never been a still place. It has always changed, shifting through epochs, and dinosaurs are living proof of the ability to adapt and survive on a restless planet. In the regions that were once their domain, the climate ranged from dense tropical forests along the equator to northern woodlands where winter brought months of darkness. The diversity of dinosaurs not only reflects their evolutionary power, but also reveals a larger story. Ancient climate shaped the world, and through it, shaped our future as well. One of the most striking examples comes from fossils found in Alaska and Antarctica. At first, this discovery surprised many. How could giant creatures, so often imagined in hot and humid lands, have lived near the Earth's poles? But it turned out that today's icy regions were once lush paradises, where tall trees grew, herbivores wandered, and predators lurked in the shadows. By the end of the Cretaceous, carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere were much higher than today, creating a natural greenhouse effect that warmed the entire planet. Temperate forests once grew at high latitudes, providing shelter for hadrosaurs, small theropods, and perhaps even giant predatory dinosaurs. This shows that our planet, once warmed up by greenhouse gases, can be profoundly transformed. And that is the message paleoclimate brings. By looking into the past, we understand the limits and capacities of Earth in adapting to change. What happened to the dinosaurs is a mirror of what humanity faces today, a rapidly warming Earth caused by our own activities. Dinosaurs, in a sense, are silent prophets. Their fossilized bones, the surrounding sediments, and petrified plant remains are all climate journals written in the language of geology. Scientists can read these pages to learn that the atmosphere once held more carbon dioxide, that sea levels were once higher, and that ecosystems once had to adapt or collapse under the weight of global climate change. This not only helps us reconstruct a lost world, but also provides clear warnings. Climate waits for no one, and it can change in dramatic ways. Yet dinosaurs are not only a warning, they are also a source of human curiosity and creativity. Every time we ask, what allowed them to thrive for millions of years, or why did they disappear, we are digging deeper into the understanding of our present Earth. Fossil research not only redraws the picture of the Jurassic or the Cretaceous, but also drives advanced scientific technologies, from CT scanning to see inside bones without destroying them, to stable isotope analysis that tracks the temperatures and diets of extinct creatures. It is thanks to this research that we realize not all dinosaurs vanished. A small branch evolved, adapted, and survived the extinction event 66 million years ago: modern birds. And here lies the profound connection between past and present. When we see a sparrow perched on a wire or a flock of gulls flying over the ocean, we are witnessing the remnants of the dinosaur dynasty. This is not only a scientific truth, it is also a reminder of the resilience of life. The story of ancient climate and dinosaurs also conveys a broader message. All life is connected in a common web. When climate changes, it affects not just a single species, but entire ecosystems. If forests disappear, herbivores lose food. If herbivores decline, predators vanish as well. This is the law that played out hundreds of millions of years ago, and it is the law we are witnessing in the modern world. So, what lesson is there for us? Perhaps it is the awareness that planetary stability is never permanent. But what makes the difference between past and present is us, humans. Dinosaurs could not control asteroid impacts or volcanic eruptions, but we can control the carbon we emit, the forests we protect, and the ecosystems we choose to preserve or destroy. If dinosaurs teach us anything, it is this: life can flourish, but it can also disappear quickly once the planet crosses its threshold. And in every layer of rock, every fossil footprint, every feather drifting outside the window, we are reminded that the story of dinosaurs is not just a story that has ended. It is still unfolding through scientific discoveries, through geological secrets, and through the way we confront our climate future. By looking back hundreds of millions of years, we do not just see giant creatures, but also a mirror reflecting the fate of our planet, and perhaps of ourselves. When we mention the Mesozoic era, most of us immediately think of the giant dinosaurs, the rulers of the continents for more than 150 million years. But what is surprising is that not all the inhabitants of that time disappeared when the asteroid closed the Cretaceous period. A few species, with evolutionary designs so enduring they seem almost unbelievable, managed to survive the catastrophe and continue to exist to this day. People call them living fossils, flesh and bone time portals that connect us directly to a distant past. And their story reveals that sometimes the secret of life does not lie in strength or speed, but in patience and quiet adaptability. Let us begin with the crocodile, a reptile that seems to carry traces of the Jurassic in its gaze. With its low body, scaly armor-like skin, sharp teeth, and ambush hunting style, the crocodile has hardly changed since its ancestors first appeared around 230 million years ago. While dinosaurs evolved into countless forms and were eventually wiped out, crocodiles merely refined the original formula: low energy use, patient waiting, sudden strikes. They can fast for months, regulate body temperature by basking in the sun or submerging in water, and survive in freshwater rivers, brackish swamps, or even along salty coasts. Such an animal, slow yet steadfast, has proven that evolution does not always require dramatic change. Sometimes just an efficient enough design can endure through the harshest upheavals. Beside them are turtles, symbols of patience and resilience. The turtle's shell, formed from fused ribs and vertebrae, is one of evolution's most unique inventions. Emerging in the late Triassic, more than 220 million years ago, turtles already carried a shape strikingly similar to today's. Despite countless ages of rise and extinction, turtles have continued their quiet journey on their slow legs. Some species live in the sea, diving thousands of kilometers to lay eggs. Others settle in grasslands, feeding on plants. Still others hide in dark swamps. From tiny box turtles to giant leatherbacks, they all share a slow living strategy: low metabolism, the ability to fast, hibernate, and even survive low oxygen conditions. This energy saving lifestyle is the key that allowed turtles to withstand climate and environmental crises. Turtles teach us that in evolution, speed is not always an advantage. Sometimes endurance is the ultimate weapon. But perhaps few stories are as strange as that of the coelacanth. Once thought to have gone extinct with the dinosaurs, this fish made a surprising comeback in 1938 when a South African fisherman pulled up a creature identical to a 70-million-year-old fossil. With fins that look like primitive limbs and a rudimentary lung structure, the coelacanth is like a missing piece left from the time animals first began to leave the sea for land. For tens of millions of years, they hid in the deep sea, where light barely reaches, living slowly, maturing late, producing few offspring but enjoying long lifespans. This slow rhythm of life, along with the stable deep sea environment, allowed them to remain almost outside the brutal machinery of evolution. To see a coelacanth swimming in the darkness of the ocean is to see a living soul from prehistory. Then there is the horseshoe crab, a creature that seems to have walked straight out of a science fiction film. With its hard outer shell, long sharp tail, and strange compound eyes, it has been crawling along the seafloor for more than 400 million years. The astonishing thing is that despite its ancient appearance, it still plays an important role in ecosystems and even in modern medicine. Horseshoe crab blood contains a special compound that clots instantly when in contact with bacterial toxins, and today it is used to test the safety of drugs and vaccines. One might say that a creature so antiquated it seems obsolete has become the silent gatekeeper of human medicine. The question then arises: what allowed these species to endure while dinosaurs, far more powerful, vanished? The answer lies in the philosophy of evolution. It is not the biggest or fastest that survives, but the one best adapted. Crocodiles, turtles, coelacanths, horseshoe crabs, each in their own way chose the path of slow living, stability, and low dependence on fluctuating environments. They are like survival strategists, keeping an efficient design rather than racing to innovate. And so, when extinction storms swept through, they remained, quietly continuing their journey. These living fossils also carry for us a profound message. They are not just living relics to satisfy scientific curiosity. They are reminders of how enduring, patient, and flexible life can be. On a turbulent planet, there are still beings that have held their form for hundreds of millions of years without vanishing. And every time we see a turtle crawling slowly across the sand or a crocodile lying still beneath a river, we are witnessing an ancient era breathing alongside the present. Finally, living fossils also make us reflect on ourselves. Will humans, a species that has existed for only a few 100,000 years, learn something from them? Perhaps it is humility, that we are not the sole center of life, and that endurance requires not only intelligence, but also adaptability, patience, and sometimes the ability to exist quietly, rather than always striving to conquer. As we step into an uncertain future, these ancient creatures whisper to us. Sometimes the secret to survival is knowing how to keep a slow rhythm in a world that changes too fast. If there is one lesson that dinosaurs and living fossils leave us, it is this: life is always a journey of experimentation and relentless selection. For hundreds of millions of years, Earth has gone through violent upheavals, from volcanic eruptions, continental drift, and climate shifts to giant asteroids crashing down. And through it all, life continued, constantly changing to adapt. This reminds us that the modern world is not the final destination, but merely a fleeting moment in the endless flow of evolution. When studying dinosaurs, scientists do not only find massive skeletons hidden in sedimentary rock, they also uncover clues to understand ecosystems, climate, and the very rules by which nature operates. A small dinosaur with unusual claws or peculiar teeth can reveal how it hunted, fed on plants, or even coexisted with other creatures. Each fossil trace is a diary page written in the language of geology, telling the story of a lost world that still echoes in the present. Today's world is filled with imprints of creatures long vanished. Many of the birds you saw outside your window this morning, from the tiny sparrow to the mighty eagle, are in fact direct descendants of feathered dinosaurs. Feathers at first were not meant for flight, but may have been used for warmth or for display in courtship. Only when time and natural selection pressed on did wings truly carry these beings into the sky. Today, the birdsong that rings out every morning is a distant echo from the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Not only animals, but modern plants also carry within them the shadows of the past. Imagine a forest in the age of dinosaurs, giant ferns, primitive conifers, and ginkgo trees that still line today's city streets. When you walk past a ginkgo tree with golden, fan-shaped leaves in autumn, you are truly seeing a design that has endured nearly 300 million years with little change. It is resilience across time, a testament that sometimes stability matters more than constant innovation. Thanks to this connection between past and present, modern science has developed practical applications. The blood of horseshoe crabs, living fossils older than dinosaurs, contains a special compound that clots upon contact with bacterial toxins. That compound has become an invaluable tool for testing the safety of vaccines and medical devices. It is astonishing that a seemingly alien creature, living quietly on the seafloor, plays a part in safeguarding the health of billions of people in today's high-tech world. The tree of life, when viewed through the lens of evolution, is not a ladder climbing straight upward, but an endlessly branching structure. Dinosaurs, birds, mammals, or insects are merely different branches of that tree. Some branches flourished brilliantly only to snap suddenly when disaster struck. Others, seemingly fragile, endured through millions of years of upheaval. This is the wondrous paradox. Life does not advance toward perfection, but only toward survival. If dinosaurs are proof of power, yet also of fragility in the face of global upheaval, then the tiny mammals of that era are symbols of patience and adaptability. Through burrowing, hibernating, and omnivorous diets, they survived the global winter after the asteroid impact, opening the way to a new era in which humans eventually emerged. This story reminds us that in nature, the strongest are not always the survivors. More often, it is the most flexible and humble beings who continue writing history. Today, as gene decoding technology allows us to trace common ancestry, the picture of evolution grows ever clearer. DNA reveals that all life on Earth shares the same root, from humans to familiar pets to molds in the corner of a kitchen. This truth is both humbling and grand. We do not stand apart, but are part of a vast web of life woven over 4 billion years. Yet perhaps the greatest lesson dinosaurs left us lies not in the past, but in how they illuminate the future. For if an asteroid could erase the rulers of Earth after 160 million years of dominance, then the impacts humans are causing today, climate change, deforestation, pollution, could just as swiftly shake the branch of the tree of life we ourselves sit upon. Protecting biodiversity is not only about saving distant species in jungles or oceans, it is about protecting our own fragile place in the evolutionary journey. Therefore, when looking back at dinosaurs, see them not merely as magnificent icons that vanished. See them as a mirror of the fragility of power, the value of adaptation, and humanity's responsibility in sustaining life. Every sparrow in the yard, every ginkgo tree by the roadside, even a horseshoe crab on the ocean floor, all are reminders that the history of life is a long symphony, and we are only a brief melody within it. Dinosaurs were not merely giant creatures that vanished into the shadows of history. They are a mirror reflecting an undeniable truth. Life, no matter how mighty, is always fragile in the hands of time and the upheavals of Earth. When we look at the silent skeletons in museums or hear birdsong outside the window at dawn, we are in fact confronting an eternal question. How can life endure, adapt, and continue to write its own story? In their age, dinosaurs held every stage. On land, in water, even in the sky, they dominated ecosystems with countless forms. Some weighed tens of tons, their heavy steps shaking entire plains. Others were small, swift, feathered, with sharp eyes, darting among the trees like flashes of light. That diversity shows us that evolution is never monotonous. It is an endless symphony of trial, failure, and success. And if dinosaurs were the proof of such richness, then their extinction is the proof of the impermanence of all biological power. This is not just a story of the past, it carries a powerful reminder for the present. For when humanity looks at the legacy of dinosaurs, we catch glimpses of ourselves. We too are standing atop an era where technology, science, and collective power make us seem almost invincible. But like the dinosaurs, we remain bound by the same ecological laws that have governed Earth for hundreds of millions of years: dependence on climate, on stable ecosystems, on countless other species in the web of life. Arrogance can easily make us forget that we are not outside the game. We are but one small branch on the vast tree of life. The fossils of dinosaurs, therefore, are not just relics. They are like pages written in stone, telling of how Earth once changed and what became of the species that failed to adapt. Each sediment layer preserves a memory of destruction or renewal. We see their charred forests, fossilized footprints pressed deep into mud, fragments of bone that were once muscle and hot blood. Reading those stony pages, we learn that life is never fixed, that the death of one species can open the way for the explosion of another. It was precisely the departure of the dinosaurs that opened the door for mammals and ultimately for humankind. From this, a simple truth emerges. Existence is not about winning forever, but about adapting continuously. Dinosaurs did not vanish because they were weak. They vanished because the pace of change was too great. That stands as a warning for humanity today. Climate change, biodiversity crisis, resource depletion, all are unfolding at a speed that old rules may no longer protect us. In the dinosaurs, we glimpse our own future if we do not learn to live more harmoniously and flexibly. And yet the story of dinosaurs does not only sow anxiety, it also inspires wonder and comfort. For life does not only know loss, it also knows rebirth. From the ashes after the meteor strike, new shoots of life still rose. From the death of thousands of species, others found the chance to flourish. Birds, the direct descendants of dinosaurs, are the most vivid proof. Today, when you see a sparrow fly past your porch or an eagle glide across the sky, it is not just an ordinary sight. It is the echo of the Cretaceous, the evidence that dinosaurs never truly disappeared. More than that, dinosaurs have expanded our imagination of time. The entire history of cities, nations, languages, religions, wars, and peace of humankind, all of it is but a blink compared to the 160 million years of dinosaur reign. When we place ourselves on that scale, we realize the smallness of our age, and at the same time, the extraordinariness of living in this fleeting moment of Earth. From that perspective, each day of existence becomes a miracle. And it is here that dinosaurs give us a precious gift: the perspective of humility. They remind us that this planet does not belong solely to humans. It belongs to all life, past, present, and future. From trilobites crawling on the ancient seafloor to the sparrow singing outside the window, from the ancient ginkgo to the young sapling sprouting today, all are branches of the same root. We are only part of that symphony, not its sole composer. Dinosaurs have taught us about power, about fragility, and about the strength of adaptation. They are a reminder that change is the only certainty, and if we are willing to listen, to learn from the bones lying silent in stone and from the birds soaring in the sky, we may find the path to avoid repeating their fate.